Under the ghost-silver moonlight of Ravenhurst, Evelyn Maren hears her name whispered from a place no one dares to enter. The old West Wing library, sealed for over 100 years. The night hung heavy with mist as Ravenhurst University seemed to breathe in silence. Between the stone towers, candlelight trembled behind ancient windows, and the wind carried the faint scent of rain and forgotten parchment. Evelyn Maren walked briskly across the courtyard, her boots echoing softly against the cobblestones. Books pressed to her chest. She looked every bit the scholar, quiet, observant, and endlessly curious. Yet, behind her calm eyes lived a hunger few understood. She wasn't drawn to the ordinary stories tucked within books. She wanted the ones whispered about in fear. Her breath caught when she passed the sealed doors of the West Wing library. Iron locks coiled like serpents, rusted with age, and the sign above read, "Restricted, by order of the board, 1891. No one spoke of why it was closed. Some said a fire. Others, something far worse. She should have walked on. But something in the air shifted, a faint hum, like the echo of her own heartbeat. Then it came. A whisper. Soft. Lingering. Her name. Evelyn. She froze. The night held its breath. Her fingers trembled slightly before she pressed them against the cold handle. Nothing moved. Still, the whisper coiled through her mind, settling deep in her chest where curiosity lived like flame. Morning came too soon. Evelyn blinked at the sunlight spilling across stacks of books in the main hall. Her professor's letter lay open on the desk. "Miss Maren, you've been selected to assist Professor Adrian Vale in archiving rare literary artifacts. Report to his office at noon. Department of Antiquities. Professor Adrian Vale." Even the name carried a weight. Students whispered about him. Brilliant but strange, handsome but haunted. At exactly noon, she stood before his office door, heart thudding like a nervous drum. "Enter," a low voice called. The room smelled of cedar and old ink. Adrian Vale sat behind a desk stacked with manuscripts, his sleeves rolled, his dark hair untamed, and his eyes, storm gray, lifting slowly to meet hers. For a moment, neither spoke. There was a strange gravity in his gaze, as though he saw not just her face, but the thoughts she never spoke aloud. "Miss Maren," he said finally, voice smooth as midnight rain. "You came." She nodded, uncertain why her pulse betrayed her calm facade. "You requested an assistant, sir." "I requested silence," he murmured, gaze returning to the open tome before him. "But perhaps silence needs an echo." Her breath caught. There was poetry in his words, even in the way he moved, measured, deliberate, as if every gesture was an old habit carved by sorrow. He handed her a stack of aged books. "Catalog these. Handle them gently. They belong to the era of the West Wing." Her eyes flickered up. The sealed library? Something dark crossed his expression, like a shadow behind glass. "That place is no longer for the living," he said quietly. Hours passed. Evelyn worked among candlelight and dust. The air around her seemed alive with memory. Books sighing softly when opened, the scent of time thick around her fingers. Then she found it. A small, battered poetry collection wedged behind others, its spine half burned, its title nearly gone. When she opened it, a pressed violet fell into her palm, perfectly preserved. Beneath it, on the inside cover, she saw faint handwriting. "To my heart, bound by words and silence." Her thumb traced the line. Something metallic shifted inside the binding, and a hidden slit revealed a tiny key, bronze, delicate, glimmering faintly even in the dim light. Her pulse skipped. She looked around. The professor had left the room. The world felt still, waiting. In the distance, thunder murmured above the spires. The key felt warm against her skin. She couldn't explain it, but it felt like it recognized her touch. That night, the whisper returned. Softer this time, gentler, almost pleading. "Come back to me." Evelyn stood once more before the doors of the West Wing library. The moon painted her face in silver and shadow. Her breath trembled as she held the key up to the lock. It fit perfectly. For a heartbeat, she hesitated, logic screaming to turn back. But curiosity had already conquered fear. The key turned. The old lock groaned, like something waking from a century-long sleep. A deep breath of cold air spilled out, carrying the scent of ink, candle wax, and something human. The whisper came again, this time behind her ear, soft, loving, and wrong. "Welcome back." The door creaked open. Darkness waited inside, and somewhere within it, something exhaled. Evelyn steps inside as the door shuts on its own. The lock clicks again, this time from the inside. The door sealed behind her with a whisper of finality. Evelyn froze, her hand tightening around the little bronze key. The air inside the West Wing library was thick, heavy with the perfume of age, wax, and secrets. Each breath felt like she was inhaling a century of silence. Dust shimmered in the faint moonlight that filtered through stained glass windows. Rows upon rows of forgotten books loomed around her like silent witnesses. Some shelves had crumbled, others tilted as if exhausted from holding so many stories. A single candle flickered on a desk ahead. It shouldn't have been lit, yet it was. Its flame danced like it recognized her. She stepped forward. Her fingertips brushed over a cracked leather cover, and a shiver coursed through her spine. Every surface here remembered. The air almost seemed to breathe, slow and deliberate. Then she heard it again. Her name, soft as silk and cold as grave dust. "Evelyn." The whisper came from somewhere above. She lifted her gaze and found the upper balcony draped in cobwebs, the shadows too thick to see through. Something moved there, soft, like a sigh. Her heartbeat stumbled. The key pulsed faintly in her palm. Before she could call out, a deep voice cut through the stillness. "Miss Maren." She spun around, the candle's flame trembling at her movement. Professor Adrian Vale stood at the doorway. His coat brushed the floor, his expression unreadable, though the faintest edge of disbelief flickered in his eyes. "How did you?" she began, but her voice faltered. He took a slow step toward her. "You opened it." The way he said it made her chest tighten, not with guilt, but something else. The tone wasn't anger, it was recognition. "I found a key," she whispered, "in one of the books you gave me." A long pause stretched between them, filled only by the faint ticking of the old clock in the corner. Adrian's eyes drifted toward the shelves, then back to her. "That key was not meant to be found," he said softly. "In this place, it is not what it seems." Evelyn took a cautious step closer. "What is it then?" His jaw tightened. "A relic of obsession, of love that refused to die." His words hung in the air, heavy and poetic. A cold draft brushed through the room, extinguishing half the candles. Evelyn's heart stuttered as she turned in a slow circle. The silence seemed to hum, the shadows watching. Adrian moved closer, too close, and she felt the warmth of him behind her, his voice a breath against her ear. "Do you feel it?" he murmured. "The library is alive, Miss Maren. It remembers. It hungers for those who listen." Her breath caught, their proximity electric. She could feel his restraint. Tension coiled under his composed surface, as if he was at war with something unseen. "I shouldn't have come," she said, her voice trembling between fear and curiosity. "No," he replied, gaze dark and unreadable. "But perhaps you were meant to." He brushed past her then, the faintest graze of his sleeve against her arm. The contact sent a rush through her, too sharp, too real. He moved deeper into the library, lighting another candle, revealing a wall of portraits. They were faded and ghostly, painted in muted tones of sorrow. And then she saw it. Her. A woman in a flowing gown stood in the largest frame, her face the mirror of Evelyn's own. Same eyes, same gentle curve of mouth. But where Evelyn's gaze held wonder, this woman's held longing. Deep, haunting, eternal. Her heart thundered. That's impossible," she whispered. Adrian turned sharply, candlelight flickering across his face. His expression was no longer distant. It was terrified. He moved closer, eyes locked on the portrait, his voice a strained whisper. "That painting." Evelyn turned to him. "Who is she?" His breath trembled. That portrait shouldn't exist anymore. The air seemed to freeze between them, the candle flame stretching unnaturally tall before snuffing out. In the darkness, the woman in the painting seemed to smile. Evelyn gasps as faint footsteps echo behind her, soft, deliberate. Adrian's voice cuts through the dark, low and trembling. "She's awake." The library had changed. Evelyn could feel it the moment she stepped through the door again. The scent of old parchment was richer, darker, as if the room had inhaled her trespass and decided not to let her go. Candlelight danced across shelves that whispered faintly with movement. Somewhere in the upper levels, pages fluttered of their own accord. The sound was almost rhythmic, like breathing. She should have left it alone. But curiosity had teeth, and hers had already bitten too deep. On the desk where she'd left her notes, a single book now lay open. It hadn't been there before. Its pages shimmered faintly, edges glinting with a strange metallic sheen. Words were etched not in ink, but something that pulsed softly, like a heartbeat. And then she saw it. Her name, written in a language she didn't recognize, glowing faintly across the brittle parchment. Evelyn stepped closer, pulse quickening. The letters curved like vines, weaving around each other as if alive. Her fingers hovered above it. She swore she heard a sigh, soft and intimate, as if the book itself breathed her in. Before she could touch it, a familiar voice filled the silence. Miss Maren. Her breath caught. Professor Vale. Adrian stood in the doorway again, his expression unreadable, though his gaze lingered on the page. He looked weary, haunted. I told you not to return here. I couldn't stop thinking about it, she said softly. The portrait, the whisper. It's as if this place wants me here. His jaw tightened. He approached slowly, eyes locked on the glowing text. You shouldn't answer when something calls your name in Ravenhurst. She glanced at him, searching. Then why are you here? A muscle in his jaw twitched. Because I remember what happens to those who listen. His words should have frightened her, but they didn't. Instead, something inside her warmed. When he leaned over the desk beside her, his coat brushed against her sleeve. The scent of rain and old paper filled her senses. Their closeness crackled like fire under glass. Adrian's hand rested on the open page, careful but firm. The light dimmed slightly under his touch, as if the book recognized him. It's an old language, he murmured. One that shouldn't exist anymore. Can you read it? She whispered. He hesitated. Pieces of it. And then, reluctantly, almost against his will, he sat beside her. Their shoulders brushed. The faint tremor in his hand betrayed the restraint he wore like armor. As he translated, his voice was low, smooth, threaded with old pain. In every lifetime, their souls find each other again, though the world turns to ash around them. Evelyn's chest rose sharply. It's about love? Adrian nodded once. And punishment. He turned another page. More glowing words. Her name again. Then another phrase, darker, heavier. The professor who defied fate. The student who remembered too late. A chill rippled through her. That's not coincidence, he finished, voice tight. Silence fell, broken only by the faint hiss of the candles. They both stared at the page, neither daring to move. Finally, Evelyn whispered, What if this is us? Adrian looked up sharply, eyes locking with hers. There was no laughter in his gaze, only the flicker of something raw, dangerous, and achingly familiar. Don't say that, he murmured. You don't understand what you're inviting. Her lips parted. Then help me understand. The air between them shifted. Heavy. Electric. His fingers brushed hers on the table, just barely, but it felt like a spark jumped through her veins. For a heartbeat, the world narrowed to the sound of his breath and the slow, magnetic pull between them. Evelyn, he said, her name a warning and a confession all at once. She didn't move away. Why do you look at me like that? Because I've seen you before, he said softly. In dreams I shouldn't remember. Her pulse stuttered. Then maybe we both have. For a moment, he seemed about to say something more, but then the book's pages turned on their own. The candle flames flared high, throwing wild shadows across the walls. Adrian grabbed her hand instinctively, pulling her close. Don't move. Words formed across the page, written by unseen hands. They broke the vow. Now time demands its due. The room grew cold. The whisper from before returned, this time layered with two voices, male and female, intertwined in longing and sorrow. Evelyn's vision blurred. The world tilted. And suddenly, she wasn't in the library anymore. She stood in another century, gowned in ivory lace, the scent of ink and roses filling the air. A man stood before her, his dark hair falling over familiar eyes. Adrian's eyes. But not Adrian. Not yet. His fingers cupped her face tenderly. They will curse us for this, he whispered. Then let them. she replied, voice trembling. I would rather burn with you than live untouched. Their lips met, fierce and desperate, as lightning split the sky. Evelyn jolted awake, gasping. The library around her was still. Adrian was gone. The candles had burned low. For a moment, she thought it had been a dream, until she looked down at her arm. There, written across her skin in dark, shimmering ink, was a single name. Adrian. The letters pulsed once, then seared, burning faintly before fading beneath her skin like swallowed fire. She cried out softly, clutching her wrist. In the silence, a whisper brushed her ear again, softer now, almost loving. The vow remembers. Evelyn's reflection in the nearby glass blinks a moment too late, her eyes glowing faintly with the same inked light. The storm came without warning. Rain battered the tall windows of Ravenhurst, streaking down the colored glass like tears. Candles flickered weakly against the wind's moan, and in the center of the library stood Evelyn, her pulse pounding, her skin still faintly marked by Adrian's name. He was already there when she arrived. Professor Vale stood by the window, his coat unbuttoned, his expression unreadable. He looked like a man torn between confession and ruin. You knew, she said softly, the tremor in her voice cutting through the storm. His gaze lifted, dark and distant. What did you dream, Evelyn? You were there, she whispered. Another time, another life. And you called me Leora. At that name, something flickered behind his eyes. Pain, recognition, surrender. He exhaled, stepping away from the glass. I thought it was madness, he said quietly. But the dreams began long before you came to Ravenhurst. Her breath caught. You've seen me before. In every century, he murmured, almost to himself. Always different, always the same eyes. Lightning flashed, illuminating his face. For a heartbeat, she saw it, the sorrow buried deep, like he had carried centuries of guilt inside him. He turned toward the grand mirror that loomed near the shelves, its surface veiled in dust and shadow. It shows truth when the past awakens, he said. But truth has teeth, Evelyn. Her reflection shimmered faintly as she approached, standing beside him. The mirror's glass pulsed once, then rippled, like water disturbed by a breath. And suddenly, their reflections were not their own. Two figures appeared within the glass, dressed in ancient garments. The same faces, the same longing. Evelyn in ivory, Adrian in black. Their hands touched through the centuries. Evelyn's lips parted in awe. That's us. Adrian's voice was low, strained. The library remembers every soul bound to it, every vow broken beneath its roof. The reflection shifted again, showing fire, books burning, her other self screaming his name, his hand reaching for her before both vanished into flame. Evelyn staggered back, tears pricking her eyes. What happened to them? Adrian's gaze dropped. They defied the curse. What curse? He hesitated. Then, as if the weight had grown too heavy to bear, he confessed. I made a pact once. To protect the library. To preserve its knowledge, even at the cost of my soul. Her heartbeat stilled. A pact. He nodded slowly. When she died, when you died, I couldn't let go. I begged the library to let me find you again. It listened, and it bound me to it. His voice trembled. I have lived through every century since. Waiting, searching, remembering only when you return. The candles flickered violently, the shelves groaning as if the library itself breathed in his confession. Evelyn stepped closer, her heart breaking for the man before her, the man cursed by love itself. Then this was never chance, she whispered. It was fate pulling us back. Or punishment, he said, his tone raw. Their gazes locked, fire and sorrow blending. The air between them thickened, heavy with memory and forbidden emotion. He reached for her, hesitant but helpless. Evelyn. She took his hand. The touch sent warmth flooding through her chest, a memory that wasn't hers flickering behind her eyes. Another library. Another night. His lips on hers beneath candlelight. The mirror behind them glowed. Its surface shimmered again, bright and feverish, until shapes began to form. Faces whispering, ink swirling like smoke. The storm outside howled, and the glass rippled one last time before turning completely black. Evelyn's voice was barely a whisper. Adrian, something's wrong. He turned, eyes narrowing. The reflection no longer showed them. Instead, a dark silhouette stood in their place, tall, faceless, dripping shadows. Adrian moved instinctively in front of her. "Stay behind me." The candles blew out one by one. The silence that followed was almost holy. Then, with a deafening crack, the mirror split. Fractures raced across its surface like veins of lightning before it shattered completely, glass raining down in glittering shards. Evelyn flinched as a cold wind swept through the room, extinguishing the last light. From the broken frame, the silhouette stepped out, its edges shifting like smoke and memory. Its voice was soft, echoing from everywhere at once. "You broke the seal again." Adrian's hand found hers in the dark. His voice was a whisper of dread. "It's too soon. It wasn't supposed to wake." The figure's hollow eyes turned toward Evelyn. "The library remembers its debt, Leora." Her breath caught. Her name, not this life's name, falling through her like a ghost. The candles flickered back to life for a brief second, revealing the figure fully, draped in black mist, its outline trembling like a dying flame. Then everything went dark again. A single shard of mirror quivers on the floor, reflecting Evelyn's face, except her reflection smiles while she doesn't. The air thickened, heavy with electricity. Evelyn's breath came fast, uneven, as the broken mirror still glimmered on the floor behind them. The shadow that had emerged pulsed, stretching tendrils of darkness across the candlelit room. Adrian's hand shot forward, pulling her close. His chest pressed to hers, a solid warmth against the storm of magic and fear. "You must stay behind me," he warned, voice low, but laced with something softer, almost desperate. "I'm not leaving you," she whispered, heart hammering. His eyes flickered with a dangerous light. "Evelyn, you don't understand. I can't leave this place. The library holds me, my soul is bound." A shiver ran down her spine, not from fear but from the weight of his confession. Bound by a curse, tethered to walls and shelves that breathed, yet he had chosen to protect her. Always her shield, always her shadow. The library trembled around them. Books spun from the shelves, pages fluttering like frantic wings. Candle flames stretched and bent, shadows leaping like living creatures. The entity's presence grew, ancient, sentient, demanding. Adrian's hand found hers again, holding it firmly, his thumb brushing along her knuckles. "Listen to me, Evelyn. This is not a game. You feel the pull, but it's dangerous." Her lips parted. "I don't care. I'll face it. With you." His gaze softened, momentarily letting go of the restraint that always held him in check. "You don't know what that means." A sudden gust of wind blew through the shattered window, extinguishing half the candles. Darkness swallowed the room, leaving only the flickering flames dancing across the remnants of the mirror. Evelyn felt the pulse of the library in her chest. Its heartbeat mirrored her own. And then, in that suspended moment, she realized she didn't fear the shadows at her back. She feared losing him more. Adrian's lips brushed her ear. "Evelyn." The word was a caress, a confession, a warning. Before she could respond, his other hand lifted, tucking a strand of her hair behind her ear. Their eyes locked, the storm of magic around them paling in comparison to the storm building between their bodies. "Do you?" she whispered, barely audible. He didn't answer. He leaned forward, their lips meeting in a kiss that was soft at first, desperate in seconds. Candlelight flickered across them, casting shadows that twisted and writhed like the library itself was watching, reacting, feeding off their connection. The kiss deepened. Hands traced curves, shoulders brushed, fingers tangled in hair and coat. The air thickened, magic sparking violently around them. Books spun faster, pages ripping free, words glowing briefly like embers before fading. Evelyn's heart hammered against his chest. I don't care about the curse," she breathed, lips hovering just above his again. "I'll free you, no matter what it takes." Adrian's hand tightened on her waist. "And if I'm lost in it? If it consumes me?" She pressed closer, forehead against his. "Then we fight it together. Always." For a long, suspended moment, the world narrowed to the warmth of his breath, the taste of his lips, the heat of their shared heartbeat. The library roared around them, alive, unyielding, and yet, in that intimate moment, they were untouchable. Lightning struck outside. The room shook violently. A bookcase toppled with a deafening crash. Adrian pulled her back, pressing her against his chest, shielding her from the falling debris. His cloak wrapped around her like a protective shadow, his body a barrier between her and the chaos. "You must promise me," he murmured into her hair, voice strained. "You will not falter. There is a second seal. It must be found. Before it finds you." Evelyn's hands cupped his face. "I promise. I will find it, and I will bring you back." A surge of energy pulsed through the room. Candle flames flared violently, then all at once went out. Darkness swallowed them. Adrian vanished. Evelyn gasped, reaching out, but the emptiness answered. Silence pressed against her ears, broken only by a faint whisper that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "Find the second seal before it finds you." The library held its breath. Shadows stretched across the shelves, curling around her like fingers. The room itself seemed to pulse, waiting, aware. Evelyn's hands trembled, her pulse racing, but her resolve solidified. She would not leave him here, bound to shadows and ancient magic. She would hunt the second seal, unearth its secrets, and return him to the world of the living, or she would die trying. She swallowed the fear that clawed at her throat, gripping the bronze key in her pocket like a talisman. The first part of the library had ended, but the war was only beginning. As the darkness swallowed the last candlelight, Adrian's voice echoed faintly in the air, a phantom brushing her mind. "Find the second seal before it finds you." And somewhere, in the twisting shadows of the West Wing Library, the first hints of the entity's awakening stirred, ready to claim its due.